Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Matthew, Watty's channel. We are returning to the WWE Mattel Superstars line. And in the very first video, we did look at Series 1, the 2021 release. The only release for this particular line in 2021. In 2022, they did come out with a couple more series until they've released Series 4 this year. And of course, they are going to release Series 5 and 6 later on in 2023. And in fact, I mentioned in the last video, you can find Series 5 on eBay right now. I don't know if those are figures that are actually in hand or if you gotta pre-order them through the eBay seller. But I've already seen prototypes for Series 7 release scheduled for 2023, so I'm assuming they're already in hand. And I'm kind of looking forward to that Series 4 release because there is something in Series 5 I do want to point out. And you'll see the difference. The same thing between Series 4 and Series 5 on those cards. So, Series 2, again, 2022 release. Same thing, just like every other series, a 4-man release. In this particular series, you're basically looking at a bunch of old-timers, bunch of wrestlers I grew up watching, some of my absolute favorites, as a matter of fact. My personal opinion, but I believe that Series 2 produced the greatest line of these figures. And I think Series 4 briefly, barely edges out Series 3 for my second favorite. But again, looking forward to doing all these videos. And I'm going to post these all on back-to-back days. So luckily, you don't have to worry about, waiting 3, 4, 5 days in between each video. Alright, so let's dive into the very first one. And we are going to start with Scott Hall and the Razor Ramon figure. So kind of following in the footsteps of Series 1 with the NWO Hulk Hogan, they come back out with both Kevin Nash and Scott Hall's NWO characters as well. So I get it, Scott Hall, real name. To me, he will simply be Razor Ramon. And anytime I refer to this person, it'll always be Razor Ramon. Very rarely will I refer to him as Scott Hall. But it says on here, NWO, New World Order. It's survey time. And then followed by one more for the good guys. And it's kind of funny that they say that because, again, it was very famous for, commentators to refer to Razor Ramon as the bad guy. Look, here comes the bad guy. Yeah. This is the back of the card. Again, really solid. We are sticking with the figures in order. So there's a couple, awesome pieces to add with the figure. Not only are you including, the cloth accessories, the clothing, you're adding a championship belt, and he's even got this little spray can in his hand there. I don't actually have this figure loose. Again, I have less than 10 of these figures loose. All of them are pretty much are going to be on card. So Scott Hall, number 1. And who else did I talk about from NWO? Diesel's Kevin Nash. So in his WCW days, just simply Kevin Nash. Prior to coming to WWF, I didn't watch WCW like that, so, correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe he played some kind of towering giant in WCW, pre-WWF. And not the Yeti. It may have been the Yeti. I don't know, man. There's just so many weird gimmicks and stuff that I really have no clue who he was. But I think he was like one of those giant guys. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to say Yeti. If I'm wrong, again, please correct me. I try to learn as much about this stuff as I can over time. Obviously, history and memories, they fade. So I try to go back and, rehash some old memories and whatnot. But there's just too much information, too much history between these different promotions, different wrestlers, etc. Again, another really solid figure. Just like with Razor Ramon, they give you these awesome sunglasses included on the figure. He does come with championship belt, and again, one of my favorite clothing accessories of any of the figures. So on the back it says Kevin Nash Wolfpack Rules. So this is where the big boys play. Too sweet. Now, around 1994 or so, when Diesel first entered WWF, he was the bodyguard of Shawn Michaels. He eventually obviously turned on Shawn Michaels. They had a lot of infamous matches. Later on, rejoined each other and became multi-time tag team champions. He infamously defeated Bob Backlund in like 2 seconds. I think he powerbombed him, pinned him, bam, new heavyweight champion. So around 1994, 1995, I think it was either Royal Rumble or In Your House, one of those events. He kind of went up against Bret Hart, and I want to say the '94 may have been SummerSlam. I mean, again, guys, I'm sorry. I should really do research on this before I do the videos, but the back history, as I've said before, it's not necessarily the most important thing about my videos. It's mostly caters to showing off the figures for fans. But I've been trying my best to incorporate more information. But if there's someone out there who has better knowledge than I do, I kind of live on the comment section because I love hearing what you guys have to say and, your history and recollections and all that. And it definitely helps me when I make my videos as well. So this is one of those figures where I did not change out the hands or anything like that, but he does come with, baggies of different hands, removable hands. And I would love to get rid of these because I don't know what the heck this is all about. Just not a fan. I'd rather have hands with like closed fists or something like that, But it's still a solid figure. There was like a 6-inch figure, I want to say, of Kevin Nash, and I think it was like Toy Biz. And he was wearing like a black shirt with black pants. It had like these little red tassels, like little red, they look like red vines or something coming out of his pants. And it was actually a really awesome figure. And it wasn't the type of figure I had as a kid, so I had it for like a decade, because I bought that figure with like a lot of other figures, and this probably had to be like after one of my deployments. So again, 10, 12, I'd say somewhere in like the 15-year neighborhood, something like that. I've had that, and sometime earlier this year I finally sold that box. And I sold like 21 figures for like $20, some tiny number. I really regret selling that one particular Diesel figure because, like I said, it was just a really good looking figure. But why do I dislike these Mattel type figures? Toy Biz, Jack's Classic Supers, because when you try to stand them up with all those movable parts, right, the legs just separate. They just go every which way. They do actually a really solid figure job staying on their own, so at least in modern day toy companies are doing a little bit better job getting these figures for display purposes, so that really helps. And I talked about Bray Wyatt from Series 1 having one of the best head sculpts in the line. I think the Diesel figure is just another one of those awesome pieces. And again, look at that detail on the championship belt. I mean, that right there is an absolute killer. I think that is... No, but it can't be. See, it actually says WCW. I don't recognize this belt. At first, I thought it was similar to Hulk Hogan's WWF belt, but... you see subtle changes here and there. So I like that little tattoo on his arm there. That's pretty solid as well. But that is Diesel. Next up... this guy will always be my number 2 all-time favorite wrestler. And, I mean, he just had a boatload of energy. And to me, I always thought he was amazing in the ring. And as an adult, you watch all of these interviews and stuff, and people just talk about how crummy of a human being he was. And how terrible he was as a wrestler. He first entered, the AWA, and he was the Dingo Warrior. And he tag teamed with Sting. Later on, Sting went to WCW, to the Jim Crockett Promotions, and became a household name. And Eventually, Dingo moved over to WWF and simply became the Ultimate Warrior. And he had one of the quickest pushes of any wrestler ever. Very few wrestlers get the type of push that Ultimate Warrior got. Yokozuna is one of those guys that come to mind who got a push and became, multiple time heavyweight champion and multiple time tag team champion and whatnot. So Ultimate Warrior, and here's one thing, he was actually outselling Hulk Hogan in merchandise at one point as well. So WWF thought that, people were getting over Hulk Hogan and they wanted to see a new champion. And so they had the passing of the torch. Ultimate Warrior became your new heavyweight champion. And of course, prior to that, what happened? Just like Macho Man and Bret Hart, a bunch of other people over the course of history, he had to win the Intercontinental Championship first. Defeating Honky Tonk Man for the belt in like a matter of seconds. Later on, defeating Hulk Hogan for the heavyweight title. Losing the belt to Sergeant Slaughter at the 91 Royal Rumble. But that set up WrestleMania for Hulk Hogan and Sergeant Slaughter so that Hogan could recapture the belt. And Ultimate Warrior, he was actually fired on multiple occasions. Actually had a stint in WCW. I didn't even know that happened until maybe a few months back when I was watching a recap of his history and found out that he was in WCW for a short period of time. And I'm like, man, I would have probably gravitated towards WCW for a little bit had I known that. Because having Savage, having Hogan, Warrior, all in WCW together, that would have been it. And you had Mean Gene Okerlund, who was like my all-time favorite announcer, right? Out of ring personality, or whatever, however you want to describe him. For Ultimate Warrior, it says the power of the warrior. The air I breathe smells of combat. Load up the spaceship with rocket fuel. And easily enough, I think that this Ultimate Warrior figure is probably one of the single greatest Warrior figures ever made. Yes, I'm probably always going to say that the LJN Series 6 Ultimate Warrior is right there among the greatest figures, period. Or the Series 3 Hasbro Ultimate Warrior will probably be my number 1 and number 2 figures. But this would make a solid 3, I think. So if I ever do a Warrior review, you pretty much know where I'm going for the first 3 figures. And when you get the loose figure in, just an absolutely amazing design on the back of his robe. I swear to God, this man had not only some of the coolest robes to go along with possibly the greatest facial paint, ever. And, he and Sting, they match up pretty well with the face paint. It changes for the times, changes for the different matches and different situations and whatnot. But I just think that all around, this is a perfect figure. It really is. And then you see the little bats, the little warrior masks. See, I always look at them as like, Batman, faces or something, right? But it's just warrior masks. That's just basically what they are. I mean, even the tassels on the boots. I mean, they just did this figure so much justice, and I am really proud of Mattel for this one. The last figure we're going to look at, probably a top 5 or top 6 of my all-time favorite wrestlers, and for a number of years, he was someone I really despised because he was part of one of the greatest tag teams ever, and his turncoat, it really hurt me as a fan, as a kid, watching what kind of transpired before my eyes. But the man went off and became a legend as a singles wrestler. We all know who it is. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And during his, sexy boy gimmick era, he had like Sherry Martel as his manager. He had like, a little beef with like Rick Martel, and they'd have like this little stipulation that they couldn't hit each other in the face because they were both like these good-looking guys and whatnot, and they didn't want to damage the facial appearance and whatnot. I'm like, lame, but whatever. again, Shawn Michaels, man, he has some of the most elaborate matches, ladder matches with like Razor Ramon. His battles with Bret Hart are like infamous as can be. Multiple time, back-to-back Royal Rumble Royal Rumble winner. The first guy that I can remember came in at number 1 and won the Royal Rumble. And I think the following year, 1996, I think he came in like number 27 or something, or 24, somewhere in the 20s. So not as awesome as a showing, but you're Royal Rumble champion. I mean, that's all that matters, right? European champion, multiple time tag team champion, multiple time intercontinental and heavyweight champion. I mean, this man has about the most illustrious career of any wrestler, period. Say what you will about guys like Bruno Sammartino or, Bob Backlund. These guys that held titles for like 7 straight years, 15 years, whatever. Vern Gagne over at the AWA, who was like a 10 or 11 time champion for AWA. Ric Flair, over the course of his career, Royal Rumble champion, 16-time or 20-time heavyweight champion, spanning WWF, WCW, AWA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, so whatnot. So, Shawn Michaels is definitely in the most elite company when it comes to the most superb wrestlers. And, he wasn't just a pretty face or a pretty awesome gimmick that they were able to, attract young fans or whatnot. His in-ring talent was superb as well. So, everything about this figure, again, this is kind of like, reminds me of the Ultimate Warrior figure. It's just a perfect all-around figure. For Shawn Michaels, it says, the Heartbreak Kid, the Showstopper, I'm not your boy toy. And, yeah. So, what does it say? Sexy for his... He's got... Okay, I gotta move the hair out of the way here. Okay, it just says, I'm too sexy for this crowd. Yeah. That's what the back of the jacket... And I like that, the hair, that this actually comes up and down. It's pretty awesome. So, the head bops up and down. Go left and right on this. So, this is probably the most infamous, Shawn Michaels white pants variant. Again, I always kind of gravitate back to Hasbro because Hasbro is the toy line that was out during my highlight days of watching WWF. And I don't remember Shawn Michaels ever jumping ship and going anywhere else. Obviously, when he and Marty Jannetty first came into the WWF around '88, they were there for like 2 seconds, kicked out because of a bar fight, brought back in, and were basically major highlighters of all of these different tag team battles for all of these different pay-per-views. And until, a few years later, when he and Marty Jannetty split, the infamous super kick to the face, and then, of course, Shawn throwing Marty through Brutus Beefcake's barbershop window. That was in 1991. So, you think about Hasbro. The Tag Team Rockers figures came out in 2-pack earlier in 1991, and then around December, he became a singles wrestler. Sunglasses are removable. That's pretty dope right there. I don't know, he just looks kind of weird though without the sunglasses. But I do like the fact that these are removable. I think that's pretty solid. Now let's see if I can get these back on without struggling too badly. And he's got, of course, the beautiful Intercontinental Championship belt. Or is that one... No, that one's the Heavyweight Championship. But just a gorgeous piece all around. And this series, at least I had 3 out of 4 loose to show you guys. I think as far as series goes, Series 2 has the most loose figures. Or I have the most loose figures from Series 2. Alright, so we've completed Series 1 and Series 2. I'm going to stay down here. I'm going to do Series 3. And my goal is to finish Series 3 and 4 tonight. And that way all the videos will be in queue, ready to go, and be posted over the next 4 days. Once again, everybody, Nothing else to follow right now. Once I do complete these review videos and get them posted, I should have the last batch of AWA Remco Customs in, and I'm really looking forward to doing that tournament. That should be a lot of fun. I don't foresee any of those videos going like, 30, 40 minutes long, like, with the Hasbro tournaments, with the LJN tournaments. So I'm hoping that the videos can hover around 15, 20 minutes if I do about 4 or 5 matchups per video. With AWA, I don't have a lot of history, so it's mostly going to be a lot of, future references when it comes to these figures. But I've been intentionally holding them off because I didn't want anybody to see the figures until I did the tournament. No shutout videos, only for the fact that I want it to be a brand new, first time appearance of seeing the figures when you watch the tournament. So, alright guys, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to polish off this video, complete the next 2 series, and see you in the comments in the next video. Goodbye everyone.